It's a brand known for making the perfect family car, comfortable, dependable, and most of the time not entirely that flamboyant. To sum them up, journalists often describe them as just nice. However, sometimes something seems to happen in the mind of the Audi engineer that must say "etwas Verrücktes tun" or do something crazy, because on the rare occasion they come out with cars like this, the literal plane-pulling V8 diesel Audi SQ7. Let's have a look, and more importantly, a drive. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. We're on TikTok, so if you want to see weekly updates, behind the scenes footage, and some funny stuff, click the link in the description below to follow us now. Now, if you're into your cars, you'll know that Audi, instead of using its all very well-engineered V8 petrol in the SQ7, decided, screw that, let's make it a diesel, add 2 turbochargers and another electric turbo to negate any lag. All that together means that this 2.3 tonne beast makes 435 horsepower, and wait for it, 900 Newton meters of torque. 900! That's more than a Mercedes E63S. I suppose it begs the question, how fast is this thing then? Let's find out and do the 30 to 70 sprint. Well, there's no beating around the bush, this thing is hot hatch fast. We managed at a time of 4.36 seconds, which for a 2.3 tonne, 7-seater diesel SUV is frankly just nuts. The other thing that I found interesting is that you can do that time in 1 gear. Yes, from just 1200 RPM in 3rd gear, this thing will still match its time as if it was going from 2nd. However, you'll notice that even though it's the most powerful diesel we've had on the channel, it's still not quite the fastest. That crown still belongs to the mighty BMW 335D. My guess is the near 3/4 of a tonne weight difference is probably responsible for that. Anyway, interior, this shape of Audi Q7 is probably my favourite iteration. Not full touchscreen, but enough tech to keep you happy. It also just looks like a very cohesive and solid design to me. The rear offers Mercedes S-Class levels of legroom, all the amenities you ever need, and a fantastic way of getting into the 3rd row. The problem is, once you're in the 3rd row, you realise everyone else needs to slide forward if the person in the back needs their legs. With everyone else forward though, it is just about doable for an adult under 6 foot for about 20 minutes I'd say. And the thing is, you even get a cup holder back here, which is pretty nice. Now, if you want to see a full practicality test of the Audi Q7, check out the review linked in the top right hand corner. For now though, let's get driving. Well, I've been looking forward to this review, and as such we're going to do it a little bit differently today. We're going to start off on the motorway, which means we've got the little handling test. Then we're going to do a proper handling test after the motorway, and then we're going to finish off round town. First things first though, the second you get in this thing, the torque is just there. It's always there. I'll show you on the motorway, but even in 8th gear at 1000 revs, it just goes. It's quite a weird sensation. And I don't know if that's that electric turbo, but I'm guessing it is. And it just makes this thing feel like an absolute beast to drive. It feels like you could pull the Earth, Moon and Sun behind this thing. Anyway, let's reset our trip computer. We're supposed to get about 40 mpg on the motorway, which is pretty decent actually. Even though it's a diesel, it is a V8 diesel with over 400 horsepower. And it's a heavy car as well, you know, you're looking like 2 tonnes for this thing, so yeah. Anyway, into dynamic, we can activate the speakers in the exhaust system. Yeah, there you go, you can hear them. So, gearbox is an S, we get sharper shifts, it holds onto gears for longer. If I turn the traction control off, this leaves the stability control on, but traction control's no longer on, so I can move it around a little bit. I can put the gearbox over into manual, and it shifts fairly quickly. It's all right. Let's see what this SQ7 is about then. Foot down. Whoa. And you really feel that this thing has power everywhere, actually. Yeah, all the way to the red line at 5,000 RPM, this thing pulls. But it's the response that is just nuts. Like, you just kind of go, that's it. Absolutely insane how fast this thing is. I mean, the way I would describe it, it's like a BMW 335D on steroids. Oh, it's just... the amount of torque is eye-watering. Right, before I do get carried away, let's go... we won't go for efficiency because that just totally deadens the throttle response. We're just going to go for comfort because you're going to be using that mode anyway. Right, especially if you're on road trips, you just want the car to drive nicely. But I mean, look, it just... you go about 1500 RPM before it changes gear. Just wonderful. But yeah, suspension, obviously you've got air suspension in this, so it's nice and comfortable. In dynamic, it's a bit more sporty, but it's not a sports car really. It just kind of controls the car's weight a bit better. Anyway, what I want to show you now, so if I put this into manual, we're in 8th gear by the way, sitting at around 1100 revs, 55 miles an hour. Coming onto the motorway, and you have never seen a car do this before, ever. So 60 now, the car's in the way unfortunately. Wait for everyone to sort themselves out. There we go, but you just plant your foot in 8th, that's 60, and that's 70. It's just like insane. And on the German Autobahn, this would sit at 155 without breaking a sweat at all. The way this thing piles on speed is license taking. You do have to be very careful with this thing because A, the sound insulation is very good, you've got very little road and wind noise, and B, you've just got so much low down grunt that you don't hear the engine until you're going very illegal speeds in this thing. But the good thing about that is that when you're on the motorway and you do need a bit of response, touch the throttle, it doesn't downshift, it just goes. It's just got electric-like response, which is fantastic for long road trips. Plus, you know, if you're in traffic, you see a little gap, you're always going to get there, never going to miss it. But anyway, let's do 50 miles on the motorway, or yeah, about that, and we'll see if we can get 40 mpg out of this thing. Okay, there is quite a bit of traffic today, so I'm going to cut it a little bit short, but we're still doing over 35 miles per gallon already. So there's no doubt in my mind you're going to get 40 mpg in this thing if you're just sitting at like 65 to 70 miles an hour on the motorway. And that's just insane when you think about it. Heavy car, a lot of performance when you think about it, a lot of performance. And when you consider the petrol version of this is only going to be getting about 20, it makes it like the perfect road trip car really, doesn't it? Anyway, let's see that MPG figure drop and take this thing for a proper drive. Okay, back in dynamic, traction is off, gearbox in manual. Let's see what this beast can do. Typical Audi. Oh wow, a bit of oversteer there. Power out of corners, nice. And yeah, it's very obvious that there are speakers in the exhaust, but it's making V8 noises, so I can't really complain. I mean, for me, it's better than not having them. Anyway, let's see what the brakes are like. marker. Slam on the anchors. Yeah. Brakes in Audis are always very good. Oh, yes. That's power right there. Steering is... yeah, not amazing. Very Audi-like steering. I kind of want it to, like, have just a bit more of a positive feel. At the minute, it kind of just gets the job done. Like, you know where the car is, but there's just no feel, really, which is a bit of a shame. Chassis, though, it feels like a big car. It doesn't really feel like a 4x4. That's where Audis are good. They do conceal their mass surprisingly well. Like, you can tell the tyres are struggling a bit, but it doesn't feel like a Range Rover where it just kind of lollops all over the road. It just controls its mass really well. And, I mean, just feels... yeah, like a big car. Surprisingly good fun, though. There you go. You get lift-off oversteer in Audi SQ7. But yeah, suspension, fantastic in this. It just keeps the body flat. Audi is so good at making SUVs just drive predictably. And yeah, you could take this thing to the Nürburgring and you would do a surprisingly fast lap time, basically. Brakes are good though. Let's do a little sound check through here. Get the pan roof open a bit. And all you're going to hear really are the speakers and the exhaust. So yeah, there you go. Is what it is. Can't really complain though. I mean, it is a diesel, so to meet emissions regulations, they can't just delete the DPF. The way the power comes in there is quite interesting. Like between 4,000 and 5,000 RPM, it feels really strong. A lot of diesels sort of start to die off around this part of the rev range. I noticed that in the 335D as well. It must just be twin turbo diesels. They seem to rev out really nicely. Gearbox changes gears very well. Got the ZF gearbox in this thing. And yeah, it tightens its line really nicely, actually. Really nicely. Very little to complain about there. It's just typical Audi qualms that I got with this thing, really. It's just steering needs to be a bit better. I mean, that's it, really, to be fair. The chassis is actually really good in this car. In the right setting, you know, in dynamic with the traction off, it feels sporty enough that I can have a bit of fun with it. Yeah, it's not like a BMW where you can be really silly, but it's not going to bore you out of your mind. It's not just a purely comfort-orientated car, but it is one of the most comfortable SUVs you can drive. So it does strike a really nice balance, especially for people that aren't super into cars. Like, if you're a proper driver, you just wouldn't buy an SUV. You know, unless you've got a load of money and you need a road trip car, then you'd probably go with like an X5 or something like that. Or actually a Porsche Cayenne, you'd probably go for Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. But this is wonderful for just, you know, someone that's got a bit of money, wants a really nice car, and just wants something that gets the job done and drives in a way that is just calming, soothing, really pleasant. Anyway, let's take this thing to a little B road now and see how it does there, as that is where air suspension can sometimes get a bit overwhelmed. Okay, let's see what this beast does down here then. Instant response from that engine. It does seem to gain a second wave of power though after 3,000 revs, which is nice. And yeah,
yes, it's very quick. Suspension deals with bumps well. What about here? Yeah, you can feel the tyres leaving the ground, shall I say. Tighter corners, brakes are very nice. Chuck it in. Yeah, I mean, this is where you do feel the weight, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, can we make it to 60 before the corner? Just look at that power. Oh, easily. Steering still fairly dead. Suspension though does control its mass well, but you do feel the weight down here. On faster, wider roads it conceals it quite well. Down UKB roads though, you definitely feel it. In terms of size though, that's what it is good at concealing. I think because you've just got loads of visibility, it's very good at just concealing its actual size, but the mass you definitely feel. It is weird though, like revving a diesel out feels so odd. Usually you're relying on that low down grunt, but this just, it is relentless. Whew. See what the brakes are like now. Oh yeah, you can feel them heating up. What a beast. Okay, finishing off with some town driving then, and this is where the Audi SQ7 is lovely. The only thing I will say though is that when you do go over some sharper bumps, you do get that air suspension thud into the cabin. And that does happen with quite a few cars with air suspension. It's only stuff like the Bentleys and the Rolls Royces that you don't really get it. But yes, I'm splitting hairs really. Overall, it's very comfortable to travel in. Bumps like that, don't even notice them. Barely even feel them. It's only bumps like this you do have to slow down for, because, don't know if you can notice it, it's just a dull thud. It's the kind of thing that only someone that reviews cars probably notices. Then in terms of parking, the SQ7, yeah, it is big, so you do need a little bit of help sometimes. And this particular car does have park assist, which I found to be slightly temperamental for some reason. Doesn't seem to ever find spaces. Yeah, anyway. Into reverse. Got a 360 camera on this car. Lines telling you where you're going to go. Nice high resolution camera with a good refresh rate. Steering angle. It's got a lot of it, which is nice. Although lock to lock, it's not too far, so you don't feel like you're doing a lot of wheel turning. And as you can see, it's fairly easy to get in the space. Once you're in the space though, yeah, you do have to be a little bit careful. Sometimes it can be quite hard to get to the first notch in the door. But yeah, overall, a fantastic car. Coming out of junctions, this is where that instant response is just amazing. It's like a rocket ship, this thing. Anyway, back to the conclusion. I mean, I just love it when the VW group just go, you know what, let's just do something a bit silly. Because they're known for being like very astute with their decisions, like, oh, it must be this, it must be that. This is done a certain way. And then for some reason, some of them are just like, you know what? Let's just put a tri-turbo V8 diesel in a Q7. And I know, yeah, it's twin turbo with an E-turbo. For me, tri-turbo. Easier to call it that. But it's just nuts. It's just nuts. And it works. For a road trip, this is the car you want. Quiet, comfortable, and just it has so much torque that it never feels like it's straining itself. It just feels like you can move mountains in this thing. And in terms of handling, a bit better than I was expecting actually. You know, you can get the car to move around a bit, which is nice. So overall, to sum it up, it's a unique proposition and well worth checking out. If you're in the market for something a little bit quirky, still quite good fun, good on fuel as well on a long journey. Obviously, once you start putting your foot down, it's not as good. Still doing 25 mpg though, which for a car with over 400 horsepower, weighing 2 tons, is pretty decent. But yeah, just a bit quirky, really, really interesting car, and I think it's well worth looking at as something that, you know, you can keep for a long time. Fantastic family car, this. Anyway, as always, if you enjoyed this review, give it a like, and why not subscribe, as not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale, which includes this absolute beast of an SQ7. My name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.